appraisal. So we always want to be comparing apples to apples, and if you're comparing a 2,000 square foot home with a 2,500 square foot home, obviously they're not apples to apples. So we give a value to that 500 square foot difference. We add it to the home that has the 2,000 square feet. So now you have the 2,000 square feet plus the cost of the 500 square feet, and now it's like comparing it apples to apples with a 2,500 square foot home, okay? So in order to do that exercise for the seller, it's important to be taking down all of the things that they've done. They like it when you take notes on every nut and bolt, but the fact is that you're probably only going to be giving value for the larger value items like roofs, decks, new decks that is, remodels, things like that, because our software doesn't really do well with the difference between hardwood and new carpeting. It's a fairly small number, and appraiser can do it. Our software, it'll become a little bit of a nightmare, and you'd have so many line items to the seller. I think that it would be very confusing ultimately. So we just kind of picked the larger value items, solar, things like that. So we've done the preview. We set up an appointment for about 48 hours later to do an actual listing appointment. We explain to them how it is that we go about doing this exercise. We use software to do it. We're going to go home and prepare a report. We're going to assign financial values for the features and benefits that you have that the comp properties do not. And we're going to assign values for the features and benefits that the comp properties have that you do not. And then the software is going to come up with a number that should give us a pretty good prediction of where value is going to be in this market. So we go ahead and make the appointment, and that's what this meeting here is about. So Jeff is going to play the seller, and I'm going to be the agent. Okay. So when you're preparing, obviously you want to kind of go dressed like you're intending to get a listing. Sweatshirts are great when you're going to work, but they're not, necessarily what we wear for listing appointments. And I don't think anybody should follow anybody else's, clothing model. I think that you should wear things that you feel comfortable in, that say, hey, I'm here to do business. I'm not a big fan of jeans. You can wear slacks if you want to wear pants. I wear pants all the time. I can count on one hand the number of times I wear dresses. So it just, but dresses are also very appropriate. Like I said, I think that you look like you're ready for a listing appointment. Just comb the hair. You don't need a bunch of makeup. I think that light makeup like you ladies have on is fine. I'm not a makeup wearer. I find when I put it on, it kind of makes me look like I'm 60 trying to be 17. So I've just found that I don't wear it, But that's not to say that if you feel better with a little bit of, fresh up of the mascara, a little bit of lip color, it goes a long way because it's about the confidence you are delivering to the client, okay? But I definitely would, and I find that in doing floor time, for instance, you'll find that there's a balance. You have to be ready to show land and yet ready to show a lakefront, right? Ready to jump into at the end of the day to a listing appointment. So try to wear things that you're, comfortable in, you feel confident in, but is kind of appropriate for whatever appointment you have for the day. Okay. Yesterday we were doing some cleanup on a property, and Jules was helping us out, and she had a listing appointment right afterwards, and she brought a change of clothes in the car. So one moment was looking like a little ragamuffin, the next one, just looked really sharp and just all black and something really simple, and and I thought, that's kind of what we want. It's just you just want to. Don't be the guy that, shows up in jeans, writing on the napkin, it's like, show that you put some time, energy, and attention into the listing. You want to pretty much know what you're going to say. So that's kind of what today's lesson is about. So once you kind of have your presentation, you want to practice it. Don't be afraid to, sit in front of the mirror. Practice. I would practice it every day whether you have a listing appointment or not, because you're going to become more familiar with it. And you'll be able to deliver it with more confidence. So I've certainly spent a ton of time, especially as a new agent, probably the first 2 or 3 years. I would read through my scripts, I would read through my presentation. I was doing appointments too, and appointments too can be something of a learning experience. Don't be afraid to take what you feel what happened really well at a meeting and do more of that. And then, you know, what you feel like you really tripped up over, then do less of that, right? So I have a way that I set up my presentation, but there's a lot of ways to set up a presentation. So I don't want anybody to feel like, oh, we have to do it this way because Edie said to do it this way. No, I'm just showing you the way that I do it because it works for me. If you didn't have a presentation, then certainly this is a good start. But if you are like, well, I really don't want to do that, I want to, you know, I want to come from a different angle, I mean, absolutely. It's your presentation, it's your business model. We're happy to kind of help you tweak things where, you know, where necessary, but not, you know, not because we will have any control of it. It'll be all about what you guys want to be representing and what resonates with you in an appointment, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and start my presentation.
Yep.
Hello, Mr. Seller.
Hey.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you this morning?
Pretty good.
Oh, you know what? Actually, there was one thing I needed to change.
And I want to make a comment. So on the preview versus the listing appointment, the preview, you're going to do mostly a lot of listening because they're telling you everything about your house and you're taking notes. On the listing appointment, that's when they're hyper-focused, the seller is, on the information you're going to give them. They did all the talking in the preview appointment. So now the agent's going to be doing a lot of the talking because they want to hear what the price is going to be. They're going to hear what you came up with all that talking they did for you. And that's why we choose to do the two-step process of doing a preview appointment and coming back with a listing appointment. And some agents do it differently, but that's the way we choose to do it.
Yeah, my husband, John, he was a big fan of just doing it all at once. You do the preview and the listing appointment all at once, but
Is that something maybe you would suggest in a hot market?
not necessarily. So, because what I have found is that the reason I went to a two-step approach was because I find that if sellers don't like your number, they're going to say it's because you didn't preview it. And I've certainly gotten a lot of listings in my day just from agents that want to just try to do it all in one step. Because what happens is that then you end up having to compensate your numbers in the discussion for anything that maybe you didn't, you know, that you didn't realize it had a certain feature or benefit, right?
Right.
So that's just, that is how it evolved for me and my team. Okay. So there you go. Okay, now it's in the order I like. So that's another thing too, is that this all kind of comes down to your preparation. You have to have things in an order that makes sense. So like, I noticed that when I uploaded my marketing plan to the Metro list, it put it in a completely different order. I don't know what the heck happened. I scanned it, uploaded it, and all the pages were different than how I normally do my spiel. Well, my spiel is, you know, I've done it so many times, for me to have a page out of place, it's really weird. It's very awkward. I'm like flipping through pages and trying to figure out where I'm supposed to be. So I would definitely, you want to kind of put it in the order that you typically talk about it to the client.
And one of the reasons why she does that is if they're going to ask her questions in the middle of the appointment that might be off track of what she's trying to tell them, she can always go back to where she started. Because she knows her presentation and she knows what page she needs to be on while she's doing the presentation. So if they ask her, why is the sky purple today? She can always go back to where she left off because she knows what she needs to be at.
Makes sense.
So, let's see here. There's one more thing I forgot what it was. Okay. So I have, my presentation is always set up like, I've got it in its order, I just need to separate it out. Okay. So we do, and normally I always put it into a jacket, some kind of jacket. My shiny jackets were down in Penn Valley, so I just found this one here. But we would normally put like a logo on it too. You just want to kind of, because you're going to be leaving the package with the client in most instances. If you choose not to do that, you don't have to do that either. I do, because we're giving them a lot of information, and a lot of times they want to be able to kind of review it and things like that. And there are parts of it that I don't really go into detail. I want them to be able to do some of their own research on it, so that we get their buy-in. So essentially, so Jeff, we're here to complete the listing process. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to work with you. I really appreciate that. So we have the presentation split up into 3 parts. We're gonna talk about, actually 4 parts. We're gonna talk about the marketing plan, which is what we're doing to attract the buyer. And then we're gonna talk about the marketing trends, because I think it's really important that you understand what movement there is in your particular area in terms of homes itself. We wanna talk about the market analysis, that's how we determine pricing. And then we wanna talk about the contract, which we'll talk about the term of the listing and commissions and things like that. So, do you have any questions on that before I start?
No.
Okay, great. Well, let's go ahead and get started then. That's when I whip open my little trusty package. Okay, so this is a graph here. This first page is a graph of the different ways that buyers will use to find homes. It's pretty important that you realize that we're actually going to be doing some marketing components in each of these categories, and I'll be showing you examples of all of that. But the internet is obviously king, so having a strong internet presence is really important. I would say about 75% of our marketing budget goes towards internet marketing, especially where it reaches the Bay Area and things like that, just because we know that 65% of our buyer pool is going to be coming from the Bay Area. So we want to make sure that we've got our strong internet presence. And then the real estate community still represents a very strong percentage chance of how a buyer is going to find a home. Now this has changed quite a bit because of the internet. Now sometimes the clients are actually a lot more educated about these properties, sometimes even than their agent. So, but we still want to, we feel that we have a very strong marketing plan, but my one team can do so much, and then what 40,000 agents in Northern California, they can do quite a bit as well. And so making sure that our marketing plan also markets to those agents and that we're networking with those agents is also a very important component of the marketing plan. Now, the mobile devices and tablets, that kind of coincides well with signs. And I do have a lot of sellers that really don't want real estate signs up in front of the house, because it makes the neighbors very curious and things like that. But I find it's really important because most buyers are traveling with some level of portable device that they can just type in the address, and it's going to bring up all of the marketing that we do on the property in high definition video, Matterport, aerial, and it's going to give the buyer some very quality information. So the buyer can make a good assessment as to whether or not this property might be appropriate for them, both in size, price, etc. So if, and I do think that the better quality information we're giving them is we want them to be kind of pre-qualifying the home for themselves before they get there. Otherwise, if we're working with a buyer that's not really ever going to make an offer on this home, then we don't necessarily want to be jumping through all kinds of hoops to be able to, show the homes to buyers that are just not going to make those offers. We want to know that there's a chance that they're going to be, that some part of the house meets their criteria enough that they're going to, that they would consider making an offer. And then the last category is actually the print media. Print media only represents about a 5% chance of how a buyer is going to find a home. But I do find in transient areas, especially like our area, we have a big tourist population. We tend to get a lot of transient traffic because of the highways, and we're en route to Truckee and things like that. So I find that I like to, when I'm traveling, I like to grab a real estate magazine and look at it over my coffee. And because we as agents don't really have a crystal ball of how, where that buyer is going to come from, of all these different methods that we're using, it's important that we be considering that as well. If we decided not to do any print advertising and the home wasn't selling, I would be thinking that we should have observed that criteria. So we have a marketing gal that works for us full-time. Her job is to go through our checklist and make sure that you're being advertised everywhere that we think that the home is appropriate. And so I'm going to be showing you examples of all of those websites and things, okay?
Okay.
Okay, so obviously, to me, the pricing in this market is really critical. So it's probably 50% of why you're even hiring an agent. You don't want to price it so low that you're leaving money on the table, nor do you want to price it so high that you just end up sitting on the market. So that there again, it kind of ties in with what buyers can see on the internet, you know, we're all consumers at heart, right? So they're gonna be looking at the homes that they feel are the better value. So it's really important that we be picking those marketing points and pricing around them so that we're, you know, not overpricing you for the market. This is just kind of a page about the same thing. Basically, this talks a little bit about how we go about pricing. So the market analysis plays a pretty big role in that, and certainly the market trends as well, which we're going to be reviewing next. So here's the graph in a little bit different view. So this is kind of a pie view, and I am going to be leaving this whole presentation for you, so that you'll be able to review all of this information later. I know when we first sit down over an appointment like this, it's all of the details are very fresh in our mind, and when we actually kind of go to market, you know, sometimes it's been 2 or 3 weeks as we go through the preparation process, and we just you might have things that you want to reference back to. So we'll be leaving this whole package with you, okay? Okay, so in terms of home preparation, like once we've signed a contract or we've been through the interview process, you decide you want to work with us, we're going to sign the contract. And then what we want to do is we want to make sure the home can do everything that it needs to do in photography. So sometimes, I would say on most occasions, that media that we're doing is one of the first contacts that the buyer is going to have with the house. So making sure that it's, you know, that it's properly presented. We want to, you know, make sure from the curb, for instance, that we have increased its appeal as much as possible. Now, we do understand also that it's not about spending a bunch of money to do this. We want to, you know, spend $1.95 and have it kind of looking like the Taj Mahal, right? But we do know that, you know, cleaning up old cars, cleaning up piles of garbage, sometimes putting up little frou-frou around the house, like, you know, shutters or little planters or something like that, stepping stones. These are things that we can do that will just create a better showing experience for the buyer, right? So, we typically, after we've signed the contract, we'll set up a day and time to meet with you shortly thereafter, in which we can kind of go through the house and create a laundry list for you of things that we think you can do to spend $1 and get $5 back or $10 back, okay? So, because obviously if you're spending $1 for a lateral move that gets $1 or $2 back, if this market changes at all, then that money becomes very risky. So we just want to make sure that we're concentrating on things that we call it putting on a little lipstick. So we just want to put on a little bit of lipstick, and that doesn't have to cost a lot of money. It's normally a exercise that's built around, you know, cleanup, decluttering, opening up. You know, we might recommend that some furniture be removed, that sort of thing, to be able to open up rooms and hallways and things. I mean, the way that we live in a home is totally different than how we stage it. So, but we do understand that if you're going to be living in the home, that we need to leave enough there for you to still live there, right? But if the intention is to sell, then a little bit of pre-packing only helps you in the long run anyway, you know? So once we get the house all dialed, we also want to, we would want to make staging recommendations. So if a house was, if you're living in the home, then we actually call it restyling. We're going to be working with things that you already have in the home, mostly because it's too difficult for stagers to mix their items with, you know, with personal items of the seller. And most staging items aren't intended for use, so they're not, like couches aren't comfortable and things like that. So we would be making staging recommendations. So have you decided, are you going to be offering the home vacant, or are you going to be living in the home?
We're going to be living there, so we'll have to prepare the home, you know, start packing.
Okay, great. And we'll, like I said, we'll go through that exercise with you, give you a list so that you understand what the priorities are. I find that sellers have a tendency to kind of do the things that they always wanted to do, which is not necessarily where your money is best spent for the best return. So I know that the very first home I sold, long before I got into real estate, I had always wanted to put up this retaining wall around my house. And so when I was thinking of selling, I ordered all kinds of rock, and I spent 3 months building this retaining wall. And when our buyer bought the home, I heard that it was the very first thing they took down was this retaining wall that I had around the house. So I make a point of, it taught me an awful lot about what I consider priority. And in being an agent, I find it's quite a different thing. We don't want to do things that cause delayed time to market, like doing full-on remodels at kitchens and things like that. That's more of a flipper's game. At the point in time that you decide that you are selling, that your money is best put into your pocket, because you're not going to be the benefactor other than the selling price. So that's why we tend to spend money like it's our own, okay? And then once we get the house all dialed in, then we bring in a professional photographer. Our photographer is great. He does high definition photographs, video, Matterport, which is the 3D video, and aerial views. If you have acreage, you know, he'll do the little plat line around it. It's all about giving the buyer now some quality information that they can determine on the internet. If they're in Boston and have never been out to Nevada County before, they can look at a home and with quality information to be able to say, yes, this home is for me, or no, this home is not for me. So that's why we use professional photography. I take a look at Realtor.com and I see a lot of agents that will just use their telephones. It does not portray the experience that we want the buyer to have looking at your home. We want it to be very sharp and clear. We want to be able to show, you know, like in an aerial view, neighboring homes and things like that. I mean, that's why we want to, we're very diligent about also cleaning up land. Even though the showing is going on inside the house, it's all about curb appeal. And buyers, you know, I know that for myself, I don't want to live next to the junky neighbor. I don't want to have piles of junk out in front of my own property, you know. I'm going to want to know that I can make it a sweet little spot. And it's the media that we're using to be able to create that impression for the buyer. So then once we get all of the media all dialed in, then we're going to want to go around and put it into all of the areas on the internet where we know buyers are looking to find homes. So these first categories here, these are all multiple listing services that we use. Like I said in that graph, the real estate community still represents a strong percentage chance of how a buyer is going to find a home. So we definitely want to make sure that we are harnessing and networking with those agents. So our multiple listing services probably includes about 17 to 20 different counties now. They're actually trying to make it all of California, but I know that they would have their best saturation in Northern California, especially the Bay Area. And then Zillow, Realtor.com, these are some of the larger search engines for buyers on the market. So we definitely want to have a strong presence there as well. And when you type in your address, you're going to come up on about 250,000 different websites. So we're going to make sure that you have some great saturation. Some of that is done inherently by the different multiple listing services that we're using that will auto feed to those websites. But then there's also quite a bit that our marketing gal has to do manually. So, and that's like we do Craigslist advertising. I know some people wouldn't think that Craigslist is a great place to sell homes, but we always on my team sell about 4 to 6 homes per year from Craigslist. So it's obviously, I used to think that it was just a strong listing tool, a rental tool. And once I started putting my listings there, I was amazed at how different the experience was for selling homes. I think that in my mind, it was because if you go onto like Zillow, and you type in an inquiry for 123 Main Street, you're going to get phone calls from about half a dozen agents that are soliciting your business. And a lot of people don't necessarily like that kind of used car environment. What's nice about Craigslist is that when you do an ad and you make an inquiry, it goes only to the person who created the ad. So that's kind of why I think that it's a very valuable tool, is that it just tends to market itself to a totally different type of buyer than you find in Realtor.com and Zillow. Postlets, YouTube, the social media, this is all done manually. So Jenny will creates the ads and sends them out. She's also really good about communicating. So Jenny is she's the marketing gal. All things marketing go to her. She will be assembling an email for you with links to all of these different websites that we're talking about, so that you have an idea. You're able to see live what it looks like on the internet to see your home. Okay, and then if you have any suggestions for us, or any changes that you'd like to have made, maybe features that you bought the house for that we're not enhancing enough, then absolutely you can put that request in front of us. Jenny will, we get CC'd on all of the communications, but we do like to know that those needs are out there so that we can help with the follow-up and make sure that that stuff's done. Jenny's great. She has it done normally in about 30 minutes, so you'll get some pretty immediate results from her too. And then, so this is some of the print media that we do. The Nevada County Chamber of Commerce magazine, we have some of the first interior pages there. The Union Home Seller, we advertise there as well. This is a local paper. Let's see here. The Wine Country Real Estate magazine, we used to have a real estate magazine here in the foothills that was a great tool because they were distributed to a lot of normal areas like gas stations and grocery stores and things like that. That magazine unfortunately has been discontinued, but there's a Bay Area version of it that we still use, and it's a great tool. It's called the Wine Country Real Estate magazine. It includes about 7 different counties in the Bay Area. This is their distribution areas here, and I've always liked it because they tend to go into some of the money areas that we wanted to create relationships with. So it's a great way for us to get a little bit more visual out to the Bay Area on the properties. They also do a monthly publication in the San Francisco Examiner, which is kind of nice because the San Francisco Examiner is one of those go-to newspapers for the entire Bay Area. So it's nice that they have a presence there. And then open houses. I'm a big fan of open houses. I know some of my sellers actually really aren't. How do you feel about open houses?
I like open houses.
Okay, good. Because a lot of I find that that open houses kind of get a bad rap in that agents have, they want to attract the buyer to the house, write the offer, and then that's kind of, if that doesn't happen, then it's not successful. And that really isn't the case. We hope that happens. But the real value in conducting open houses, I find, is the type of marketing that goes on around open houses. So when I put a listing into the multiple listing, you get a blast out into the world, about this new listing and how great it is, and buyers can see new inventory. But if I make any changes to that listing whatsoever, in terms of maybe changing up photographs or changing a description or adding something that really needed to be added, well then, I don't really have a way to bring buyers back to the listing. The only thing I can do is do price reductions to be able to get that new blast out to the internet. Well, we can't really ask for a price reduction every time we're just trying to shake up the buyer pool, right? So I find that open houses are one of the few tools that we can use that actually kind of blast out to buyers. Anybody who's saved to the listing, anybody who has a similar search criteria, like Zillow will send them an email, hey, this house is having an open house and you have it saved in your favorites. So that's where I find that it can be really, really important, is that you go into about 1 million new inboxes, without having to do price reductions. So I'm a big fan of those too, and we do quite a bit of marketing around those open houses. So these last couple of pages, the selling process and marketing pages. So like I said, everything's really fresh in our minds as we're starting this appointment, but in another couple of weeks, the details might get a little blurry. So we put our marketing plan of action into writing in terms of first week, second week, third week, so that you have something from us about everything that we've discussed here today. The contract, in my estimation, is not a way to hold your feet to the fire. To me, the contract represents a job description of what we've discussed here at this listing appointment, and then so that you always have something to reference about what we agreed to at the listing appointment, okay? So, and then the selling process, once we get an offer, this kind of breaks down the selling process a little bit so that you'll have an idea of what we're going to be working on your behalf in the background, okay? And then I've also included my resume here. We don't need to go over that. Like I said, I'm going to be leaving this whole package for you. You're welcome to read it if you find that valuable. So that's our marketing plan. Do you have any questions about that?
No, I don't.
Hi, Jules. Well, thank you very much for stepping in for Jeff. I really appreciate it. I'm sorry that you missed the first part of the presentation, but I think that you and Jeff can kind of confer later and see if our marketing plan is something that resonates with what you're looking for. But we'll just go ahead and complete the final 2 sections of the presentation. So we would spend a little time over the marketing data. I think that what you need to know in the graphs that I've provided for you is just that our market is very unforgiving right now for overpriced inventory. Now that doesn't mean that we want to start bottom feeding, like doing fear pricing or anything like that. It's just kind of the nose on our face that, you know, I'm not known in the industry for being a bargain basement realtor. So people know that when I put something on the market, I'm expecting to negotiate pretty hard against that pricing. So, I mean, I think it's of due note, but I do want to make sure that we're talking about the elephant in the living room, that our market isn't quite what it was before they started increasing the interest rates. Right now, the interest rate for a primary home is at about 8%. There is rumor that it's going to be going down a little bit in the beginning of the year, but I find that's normally a precursor to jumping again in the following quarter. So, but we'll just kind of see where all those rumors go. So we're going to go on to the market analysis, okay? And this is how we determine pricing of the home, okay? So you can see we do the market analysis in two different ways. There's the side-by-side comparison, which actually, so this has your subject property. These are all of the features and benefits that we're comparing, okay? And then here's your subject property on every single page. And then these are the comps here that we're comparing you to. The intention of the side-by-side comparison is so that you can just kind of see researching several properties at a time across, like for instance, in terms of their square footage, and then adjustments that we made for the differences in square footage. Lot size, and then if there's a significant difference in lot size or usability, or maybe location, then you'll see those adjustments too. So we compare a lot of different features about the house. That's one reason why we do that preview in the beginning, is because we want to make sure that we're able to document what are the improvements that you've made over the years owning your home, so that we can, you know, give you as much of that value back as we possibly can. Okay. So anyway, once you're done with the side-by-side comparison, then we've also included all of the, you know, this is a map of where the listings are, so you can see that they're all within about a mile of your property. And then we do the large versions too. It's the same listings that are on the side-by-side comparison, but I find that when you're trying to research these properties individually, it can be very difficult to get a sense of them off of the little thumbnail. So what we do is we include the larger pages so that you have all of the features and benefits, all of the marketing detail, and then all of the extra photos of the pictures and things like that. And you can also go online and look up these addresses. Zillow will kind of give you all the same information. But for the purpose of our reporting, we just wanted to make sure that you had all of the tools that you needed to be able to study the comps if you wanted to do that after the presentation, okay? So now the number that our software recommended, so we put everything into a cover, oh here it is here. So the market value of your home is $350,000. I can go over the comps individually if you'd like, but otherwise I think, like I said, this whole package is going to be left with you. You'll have as much time with it as you need.
Okay.
So what do you think of that $350,000 number?
It seems somewhat lower than what we were hoping for, but realistic as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that the issue is that we're competing in that range against homes that are larger square footage. So I would be very cautious about going above that number. Secondly, it's those $50,000 benchmarks are extremely important benchmarks for how we do searches as agents, and certainly how consumers do searches too on like Realtor.com and Zillow. So when they set up searches for themselves, they're not normally saying, oh, I want to go from $324.99 to $342, $343. You know, they're normally like, I want to look between $200 and $400, $350 and $450. And normally it's like some level of, okay, the lower end typically is like, well, I don't want a fixer, so I'm not going to go down as far as a fixer. But I qualify to 400, so I'm going to do the search to 450 because maybe the seller will come down a little bit in pricing. That's normally some of the consumer thoughts going on behind it. So that's why I find that those $350,000 benchmarks are super important. So I definitely would not recommend going above that.
That makes sense.
Even at 351, you're gonna miss all of the buyers that are searching up to 350. Okay, so that's it on value, and so what I typically do is, now in going over the contract, so I don't normally write in, like, I don't type that in beforehand, because in the pricing column of the contract, and for the purpose of our discussion, I'm gonna pretend I have a contract here, okay? So for the purpose of, like right here, it says the price that we're gonna be offering at, and then it writes it out like a check here. So I like to have the discussion with the seller over pricing first, so that I don't have to scratch anything out and then try to write it in. There's not enough room for both. So what I'll do is I write in the $349,000 here, and then I hand write it out by the check right here. And then regarding commissions, that's actually the next point right underneath it. So in our neck of the woods, I don't really have a rate that I quote unquote charge. What I do is I explain commission strategies, and then we set up the listing according to whatever strategy you feel meets your budget. So in our neck of the woods, I mean, I would say probably 99% of the commissions are gonna be at either 5% or 6%. And that is typically split up 50-50 between the whoever has the listing and whoever is bringing the buyer. A 5% commission would be considered a discounted commission, but I know that we certainly have plenty of 5% commissions in the MLS, and I know agents will work for 2.5%. A standard commission would be 6%. That would be split 3% per side. Now, the difference is that all of us as human beings, we are consumers. So most buyers agents, they're probably closing about 3 to 4 homes per year. So that extra 0.5% is a pretty big deal in their world. I find that most of us as consumers, we don't walk into grocery stores and say, "Give me all of your overpriced stuff," right? So we want to be using commission as a tool to be attracting more of the buyer's agents. If they're earning a standard commission, they're more than likely to be pushing your home. Now, like I said in the beginning, over the marketing, you missed this portion, but when the internet has really changed the information that buyers have, so it's not uncommon for the buyer to come to us and say, "Hey, I want to go see these 12 properties." However, I'll guarantee it's going to come down to a conversation where there are 2 properties that are in the running, and he says, "Hey, Ms. Agent, what property do you recommend for me?" And that's normally where I see that an agent's going to be looking at the entire picture, including that commission statement. Because what happens is that, like, if somebody's offering 1% in a market that is standardly 2.5%, I as an agent, I'd be very concerned over that, because I feel like, if the seller would participate in that sort of bad business, what other bad business decisions might be inside some of the disclosure issues and inspection issues and things like that. So I just think that it's important to be, we're trying to guide you through a very healthy transaction. And so for me to say it's not important how much you pay the agents would be inaccurate. So I would highly recommend a 6% commission. If Jeff or I, if I represent both the buyer and seller, then we're going to do it for a discounted commission. So it's not about paying me more for the job that you're already hiring me to do. It's really just more about, hey, we want to make sure that if we're attracting a Coldwell Banker agent, if we're attracting a RE/MAX agent, we want to make sure that they can see that we are compensating them fairly in the transaction, so that they will be more inclined to bring their buyers to us. Okay?
Touche.
So, and then the term of the listing, I typically do a 6-month listing, because at the beginning of a listing, I mean, to me, all that I have is permission to start spending money. So between the property preparation, working out the staging details, working out cleanup, getting the photography and marketing in place, we spend about $1,200 to $1,500 in the first 2 weeks. So we just want to make sure that at the end of the day, that we've given ourselves enough time to be able to compensate us back for the money that we're spending. That is how we make our money, is through the commission. Okay. So I'm going to explain this document to you. First of all, are you prepared to sign the contract today?
I'll have to talk it over to Jeff.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of explain the pertinent portions. When you guys are ready to sign, we'll sit down and I will go over every single page. But the state of California puts in about 6 pages of disclosure that if I explain it now, I'm just gonna have to explain it later anyway, and I do respect your time. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna peel these pages off. And the reason I'm explaining it is that I don't want you to think that I'm hiding anything about the contract, okay?
I appreciate
So,
that.
so here's our listing timeframes. Here's the amount that we're gonna be writing in. Here's the commission. Down here is where we're splitting that commission with the other side. Some of my sellers get confused by these two numbers because it looks like it's 3% plus 6%, but it's actually 3% of the 6%, okay? And then we go over here to more disclosure, blah, 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 blah. And then there's we go on to the final page. This is where you're, in the state of California, we've initialed all the individual pages and we'll be signing the signature page. There is a mediation clause as well if there's any financial disputes between us that we would consider mediation rather than hiring expensive attorneys. I've not had a mediation situation with a seller. I mean, I find that my philosophy is pretty simple. I mean, the client's always right, and we just need to communicate well to make sure that we're putting solutions in place that are satisfactory, okay? So did you have any questions about the listing contract?
Not at the moment.
Okay, great. Well, so are you gonna be interviewing any other agents for the position?
We haven't really discussed it. We felt like you were a top listing agent and wanted to go with you.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for that. And I do appreciate the opportunity of being able to apply for the job of being your realtor. Myself and my team, we would work very hard at making sure that we continue to maintain that trust. So we're very good communicators. We'll be communicating with you weekly too on feedback. Feedback we try to get to you actually the day of showings. It just sometimes it takes a day or two to chase it down from the agent. So we'll just do the best that we can on it. But we do understand that the communication process in a situation like this, we do this for a living, and you do not. And so you're relying on us for that information. I want you to know too that although we work in a team environment, where you will only work with Jenny in marketing. Any other problem or concern you might be having, any showings that we're setting up, that will all be set up by myself and my co-listing agent. So we will be speaking with you and working with you directly. We do understand that you're hiring us as the figureheads of the team, and so we'll be the people that you'll be dealing with. Okay. Okay, great. And then, so how long do you think that you need to be able to make the decision about who to hire as your realtor?
24 to 48 hours.
Okay, great. Well, why don't I plan on giving you guys a call tomorrow, if that's okay? And if you need more time, just let me know. But otherwise, the market is really hot. The weather is holding really well. So, we obviously want to try to start working on the things that we need to do to prepare you for sale and get you on the market. Okay?
Thank you for your time, Edie.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it.